Truth isn't comfortable. It's not convenient. But the alternative is, to me, is destruction. And so ultimately, that's what this is really about.
What is critical race theory?
It is basically a subcategory of legal studies, and in particular, what's considered a critical subcategory of legal studies. And you basically have to be a very advanced legal scholar in terms of pursuing a PhD in legal studies. And then, if you decide to pursue a PhD in legal studies, you could include or specialize in this critical subcategory of very advanced scholarly legal studies known as critical race theory. And what it is, in essence, is it's this examination and deep dive into the codification of race-based institutionalized discrimination in the United States through looking, for example, at U.S. Supreme Court cases such as Dred Scott, Plessy versus Ferguson. It was salient to my research because I was looking at the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Topeka U.S. Supreme Court ruling that desegregated K through 12 public schools and also eventually universities and colleges, right, that had all been segregated based on race.
How has critical race theory become such a divisive political issue so quickly?
So this is a great question, and I just had my classes do an exercise on the genealogy of how this has become so politicized and propagandized and intentionally polarizing in divisive ways. And to really understand this, we have to go back to Nicole Hannah-Jones, who is a Pulitzer Prize investigative journalist who was in charge of kind of editing and compiling or collating a special issue of the New York Times called the 1619 Project. 1619 is the commemoration of the 400th year when most scholars agree that the first 20 to 30 kidnapped Africans were first brought to the then colony of Jamestown, Virginia through Point Comfort, and they were sold into slavery in Jamestown, Virginia. And once it was released, then President Trump came out with a series of tweets and launched this attack on what, and I'm not sure where he got the language from, what he dubbed critical race theory, which Donald Trump characterized as this propaganda that basically demonizes the U.S., that presents a revisionist version of American history, when actually that is the American history, that is the status quo that has always been in place in K through 12 public schooling to differing degrees. And really, when we're talking about just teaching everything and fully integrating it, we're really more so talking about culturally sustaining, culturally relevant pedagogies and content. And what we're really talking about is truth.
Is critical race theory racist against white people?
Absolutely not. Not at all. First of all, we're talking about the law. We're talking about looking at primary source documents that anyone can access, for example, in the Library of Congress. We're talking about court cases that I've looked at, and on the paper in black and white, U.S. Supreme Court justices literally saying that black people are not capable of citizenship, that black people are subhuman, that they are violent, that they are prone to criminality, and that they absolutely do not have the intellectual or moral kind of capacity to engage in a democracy. And so these are the words that are actually on the paper in black and white. So this is very factual based. Second of all, we can look at more recent court cases, not just in relation to the state legislature banning and censoring of books that even cover the Holocaust. So now we're going from Black history to the Holocaust, where we're talking about truth. We're talking about our full history, both recent and in the distant past. And we're talking about framing it in a way and teaching in a way that does meet our students where they are. And part of the process of grappling with these very, very difficult truths is that you're going to go through a range of emotions. You're going to feel some discomfort. I've been teaching in these ways for more than 20 years. And there's absolutely a way to build this up. There's absolutely a way to hold space for students to feel the full range of emotions. White students are not the only one to feel the strong emotions. I felt the strong emotions when I was learning about all of this content over the course of several years. Colonization, genocide, land conquest, and slavery. We didn't create it, we inherited it. Let's work together to resolve it.
Is it possible to get to a colorblind society? And is that something we even want?
It's not possible. We don't want it. Sociologist out of Duke University and president of the American Sociological Association, Eduardo Bonilla Silva, really does tremendous work on characterizing and making sense and analyzing why colorblindness is the new form of racism. And what colorblindness does is it creates a system where you can have structural racism without actual racists. I am constantly bombarded in every aspect of my life with being racialized as a Black and as a woman. So there's no colorblindness for me, right? I don't get to opt out. So colorblindness is actually a different way of saying, oh, I'm in a position of privilege. I don't have to think about race because the entire society is set up in a way that I don't have to think about it, that I'm not impacted by it. The reason why we do not want to get to a colorblind society, in addition to that, is because that what colorblindness does is it allows us to just completely ignore the fact that structural racism and other types of discrimination still exist, the fact that this has been a constant back and forth tug-of-war struggle in the U.S., history is not linear, and the fact that it's very dangerous to basically ignore and deny that structural racism exists. And that's what colorblindness does.